Hi everyone, I'm Marina Gattas. I am based in São Paulo. I'm the Culture and Public Policy Lead at WEAL, and it's such a joy to be speaking to you about the Wellbeing Economy Movement and Alliance today. I'm going to start with just a bit of an introduction on the Alliance. So WEAL was founded in 2017, and it's a collaboration of other organizations, alliances, movements, and individuals, basically anyone who's working towards economic systems change. And what glues us together, regardless of the geography or the strategy, is that we all have this common vision of an economy in service of life. And before I go into what we mean exactly by the well-being economy, I just want to start with the question, what is the economy? To me, as a social scientist, political scientist, and not an economist by training, this is quite an interesting question because it's always been really evident to me that anything human related is a social construction to start with. And coming into the space, you start realizing how much of our mental models and the narratives that surround us are really just shaped so that we see the economy as something outside of us, as something that is separate from humans, that we really can't interfere with, and that is just as it is as a given. But really, the economy is just the way that we produce and provide for one another. And so we can, and we do have control over the economy, and we can dramatically change the processes and therefore the results that we're achieving as a society and aim instead for human flourishing rather than just treating the economy as an end in and of itself. We're talking about a very radical paradigm shift considering how much energy and how dominant this way of seeing the economy has become today. And we need to shift from seeing people and planet here to serve the economy to the understanding that actually the economy is here to serve us. It is a way that we can provide for all of us and promote human flourishing and flourishing of the natural environment. This is also especially relevant when we're talking about a system that for the past 500 years has been designed to systematically exploit and explore people in the global south towards the benefit of the global north and wealth accumulation in the global north. It is embedded in the design of our economic and financial systems that this happens. So when we're shifting our processes and swapping the economy as an end to a means, it really means shifting these systems at all levels as well, local, national, as well as also global. Our shared vision is an economy designed to deliver quality of life and flourishing for all people in harmony with our environment. And that comes down to understanding that we are all interconnected with nature, with each other. So anything happening to anyone happens to all of us. And when we're talking about especially environmental degradation, really shifting that mindset of externalizing damage to other places and recognizing that there's just one planet and we're all deeply interconnected. So any sort of flourishing is by definition mutual. These are the 5 needs. We call them the 5 WEAL needs, and they're kind of a direction of travel. So when we're talking about putting the economy at service of people and planet, these needs just help us dive deeper into what we mean with that vision of the future. Where is it that we're heading with? If it's not economic growth, if that's not our metric of progress, then what is? And it's definitely a multidimensional answer. These 5 needs are a way of synthesizing shared values and visions that they will vary from location, from culture to culture, but they're somewhat universal principles that help us envision what we really want for everyone. So the first is fairness, second one, nature, third, participation, fourth, connection, and fifth, dignity. I'll go through each one of these in the following slides and how the economy can be at service of each of these end goals. So a well-being economy is an economy where the activities and behaviors are valued exclusively by their contribution to social and ecological well-being. So we're not just measuring money flows, we're measuring the economic contribution to social and ecological well-being. We're shifting the purpose entirely of the economy. The well-being economy also, throughout its entire process, when we're thinking about those activities, how we produce and provide for one another, in that process, we are restoring, protecting, and cherishing the natural environment. In a well-being economy, we're also, throughout the entire process, providing everyone with what is needed to live a life of dignity and purpose, leaving no one behind. And we're ensuring a just distribution of the usual things we think about when we talk about distribution, which are income, wealth, and power. But also, I think it's so relevant to think about time too, and our distribution, our unequal distribution of time today, and how that can be drastically changed just simply by changing how we do, how we produce and how we provide. A well-being economy is also locally rooted, and its shape and form is determined by people's active voices. So it's really about breaking through that globalization and top-down ways of running the economy so that people are actually in control of their economic futures, and they're taking and participating directly in all economic decisions and policies. How do we get to that world of a well-being economy? So at the Wellbeing Economy Alliance, our whole theory of change and the reason we exist as a collaboration is that we believe that in order to shift the economic system, we need to look at 3 shifts that have to happen sort of simultaneously and further nurturing each other. So shifting narratives, how we talk about the economy, the stories, our worldviews in relationship to our natural environment and to each other. We also need to shift policies and practices. So really creating the incentives and recognition for the practices that will lead us to this other alternative economic system or systems, and shifting power. So also radically shifting how we go about making decisions about the economy. In the first pillar, shifting narratives, we are today at the stage where it's fair to say that it's easier to imagine the end of the world than the end of capitalism, because we take so much of our ways of doing things for granted. And we're facing this crisis of imagination. We've known for so long that we have to change the economy in order to solve these interrelated crises of climate change, environmental breakdown, social injustice, racial injustice, democratic instability, but it's so much difficult to take action, and partly because it's so hard to imagine an alternative, right? So at we promote alternative narratives. One of the ways that we did that was through Stories for Life. It's a guide on changing our stories from horror stories to love stories. We want to be promoting a vision of the future that's hopeful and that can show us how to get there, rather than just pointing to the problem. And the way we flip those narratives is in the way that we talk about the world is going from a place of seeing nature as our slave to nature as our family, and shifting our emphasis on productivity as success to well-being as success. And that's really a more positive, hopeful future, but also so much of recapturing these stories that have been around for so long. So it's not just we're saying that we need new stories, it's also a bit of recovering some of the stories that were in place before the economic system was the way that it is. The economy has changed so many times, and it's really about honoring some of those values. Most of them are still very present in Indigenous communities, but so many cultures, and I come from a much more collectivist culture as well, where these things are more innate and kind of part of our day-to-day, but it's definitely not the dominant ways, and it's not directly influencing today decisions about our wider economic systems and how they're interrelated. The second pillar, shifting policies and practices. So this is an area of our work where we collaborate with our members to co-author papers on relevant subjects. And as the well-being economy is sort of this umbrella term that captures so many different strategies and movements, and I'll be talking a little bit more about that later, it's really important too that we have these experts in different fields synthesizing knowledge about how we can transition to a well-being economy in certain sectors or through certain lenses of who the change agents are. So I brought here two examples: the business of well-being, first, which is a guide to shifting business as usual into these sustainable and distributive models. The second one is zero waste in a well-being economy, which through the framework of the 5 R's, refusing, reducing, reusing, recycling, and restoring, synthesizes how we can shift the current path, and also brings case studies from what governments are doing, entrepreneurs are doing, as well as civil society in order to shift towards these specific principles. And on the right side, I just have this puzzle, which is a very, very simplistic and synthetic way of also organizing how we're thinking about interventions. So there are several ways that this could be implemented, but ultimately the recurring themes that show up in all of these approaches and practices that work towards a well-being economy is that fundamentally they are pre-distributing rather than redistributing resources, time. So looking at that more preventive approach and how the economy and economic activities can do the heavy lifting of distribution rather than relying exclusively on like this redistribution at the very end of the line. Purpose as well. So I've talked a bit about this already in terms of really clearly stating the purpose of institutions and of governments and of businesses as making the world better off than if they didn't exist, and aiming and having that clarity that the economy and all the activities in between, they're just a means to an end. Prevention is also super important. So not just doing less harm, but really preventing any harm from happening in the first place. It's always more expensive and more destructive to try to fix things after they've already happened. And people-powered, again, at the essence of all of it, people need to be actively engaged in the economic decisions, and today they are definitely not, or at least in most places they're not. And it really is about creating these spaces for deliberation, as well as promoting assemblies and other ways of bringing the communities and the people who are directly involved in those economic activities to have the control over the outcomes. Here are some of the strategies that several members in our alliance are part of. So the Wellbeing Economy Alliance is an umbrella for several different other movements and organizations and approaches to economic systems change. And they're all focusing on different aspects: regeneration, very much on mimicking nature and regenerating social and ecological well-being. Economic democracy, for example, very much focused on that distribution of economic power and the decision-making. Core economy, bringing to the forefront activities that today go by as informal work, mostly. So each of these have different approaches and models and strategies, but they all share this vision with us of a different economy being possible. And finally, the third pillar of shifting power. So we are at service of the movement, and we support different organizations who are working towards this. And we do believe strongly that, different from how the current neoliberal economic systems came about through this very top-down, centralized way, backed by so many millions of dollars in campaigning for this system and molding, all of our stories and the way that we see the economy through the past 30, 40 years, especially, to a bottom-up approach. So if we want to build a different economy or different economies that are locally rooted and decided by people's active voices, it has to be a process that by definition is also through every stage being built by so many millions, billions of hands, and where people are collaborating and coming together to envision their new realities and implement them and put them into action through a very evolving and also open process where we don't have all the answers, but we are all in this together, and things and different models will be explored and tested in different parts of the world, and they can be exchanged and replicated, but really conducted throughout by the people whose futures are at stake. In our alliance, at the moment, we have 400 organizational members. We have 6 governments who came together and created this government-to-government partnership. It's called the Wellbeing Economy Government Partnership, and it's a collaboration between governments to promote a transition from the federal level. We also have a policymaker network, ambassadors, spokespeople, academics involved, several individual members, and 13 hubs around the world. So hubs are this bridge between global and local, and they're pushing for economic systems change in their countries or bioregions or cities, and also exchanging between hubs so that there's mutual learning happening from local to local and from global to local. The members that we support, I have some of their logos here just to give you an example of the different types of organizations involved. There are third sector organizations. We also have consulting firms, businesses, movements, and several other different types of organizations involved who also have different regional focuses as well. We are supporting hubs around the world. There are 13, and here's a map just so you can see where they're located as of now, and the hubs that are kind of in the process of coming together. There are some discussions in South Africa happening, which I'm very excited about. Youth is also another area that we support. So university students came together with We All to think about this We All Youth and ways of bringing about conversations on an economic transition to the university settings, and also in language and in mediums that are more accessed by youth so that they can start this conversation earlier on. These are the national governments that are part of the Wellbeing Economy Government Partnership as of now. These are the prime ministers at the time of founding of the partnership. And we also have several tools that we've developed to help put participatory policy design for a well-being economy into action based on the Wellbeing Economy Policy Design Guide that was launched in 2021. And last year, the Wellbeing Economy Playbook, which captures our learnings after having implemented 4 pilots of this guide in different parts of the world. And then we also support several movements. So I've talked about how all of these crises are interconnected and the economy permeates so much of these different issues that we're facing today. So we do support movements in making those connections with economic systems change, and also bringing about these conversations to area movements such as climate change, social justice, racial justice, so that, and financial systems change, so that we can connect the dots and see the interconnection between these different efforts and really come together through our powers to change our local realities. And I want to leave you with this message that ultimately the economy is us, unpredictable, emotional, human us. The economy was designed by people, and it is maintained by each one of us every single day through the decisions that we make. And if it was designed by people, that means that we can redesign it and we can do it together. And understanding that because it is a product of human activity, it is going to be a messy process in this transition, and that's okay. Ultimately, what's more important is that we are engaging with it and starting these conversations and making the connections and creating these different futures that will lead us to shared well-being for people and planet. And this is why it's so exciting to be talking to people who are already in this journey. I hope that this overview of the well-being economy is helpful and can perhaps you can find points of synergies and things that you'd like to collaborate more on or talk to us more about. I am leaving you my details here and also this QR code with all the resources that I talked about in the presentation, like Stories for Life, the papers, and also a link for you to join WHEEL as a member. It would be terrific to see you all part of this alliance and contributing to show the work that you're already doing to other people who might be inspired by it, as well as helping us to mobilize energy and more supporters who are already in this journey so that we can find greater and greater points of synergies and collaborations across different sectors and regions. So the link to applying is there. It's also wheal.org/members. And we have a form both for individual members to join and for organizations. And it's really up to you to see what fits better in terms of signing up as an organization or a member. But the experience is just very similar in terms of accessing these shared spaces and events that we have for the Alliance. It's at no cost. Our objective is really to promote spaces for connection and collaboration. So I do wish that you are inspired by this to join, and looking very forward to keep this conversation going. Thank you so much.